Come down onto Reeds Road.
You towed on ours. What would it be? Back into the kid?
Welcome everybody. Declare the meeting open. I advise that the meeting will be digitally recorded in accordance with council policy. Record meetings of council to assist in the preparation of minutes and to allow the streaming of council meetings. A reminder to those in attendance to ensure their mobile phones are switched to silent throughout the meeting. The Circular Council acknowledges the North West Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of the country on which we stand, meet and play. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. If we could be upstanding for prayer.
Let us take a moment to focus our hearts and minds on achieving wisdom and clarity in discussion and debate. We ask that light shines in our hearts and illuminates the decisions made here tonight on behalf of our community.
Thank you. Right. Then just here we have a leave of absence from Councillor Oldacre, approved at the last meeting or a meeting previous. Minutes. Can I have a mover and seconder that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the council held on the 16th of May be confirmed as a true record? Moved Councillor Dabner, seconded Councillor Collins. No debate? Put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillors, is there any conflict of interest at all?
I should declare a conflict of interest in the Rancho subdivision at John Street, having business dealings with...
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Pilkington. No other? Councillor Dabner?
I'll declare an interest in 6.2 and 6.3 in those applications under planning. I've had some minor business dealings with both respective developers. So.
Thanks, Councillor Dabner. 4.1, Mayor's communications and meetings, etc. Should note here, and I apologise to Matt, can we remove the Mayor's meeting at Latrobe, that one? And the Stanley effluent disposal opening, the weather was that bad that was postponed. So apologies for not having that in the diary properly. Any questions on any of those? Councillor Hine.
Senator Tyrrell and Ken Drake meeting, what was that about?
You'll notice through those that there's a number of politicians meeting and catches up. There's not been anything in particular. It's a start of the cycle of the new parliament, and they've been coming around and just having general chats. So nothing in particular. We've highlighted where we're at with our wish list, etc. Basically, that's what we've highlighted through those meetings.
Next one is on the 5th to 6th Energy Conference, and the next one below that, Mark Bowles meeting at RecFit.
Yeah, look, the Energy Conference was basically the providers of all the different types of renewable energy were there and making presentations, as well as RecFit and a few others. Mark Bowles had reached out and I had a chat to him generally about the positions of things down here. So that was pretty much what that was.
I guess the same thing is with on the 19th WNF Forum.
That was last night. Yeah, the Tourism Forum. Same thing, presented by where they're at with a number of different projects and different things like that. I will say that the last speaker, which was the CEO of the Jack Jumpers, was particularly interesting and good. Also stayed on then for the announcements of the tourist towns, which Stanley, one of the tiny towns, and the public vote award as well. So,
Thank you.
what? Right, could I have a mover and a second that they be noted, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hine. No debate. Put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 4.2 nil. 4.3 workshops. We've been, I think they're pretty self-explanatory as what we've dealt with in the workshops. So unless there's a question, if I have a mover and a second that they be noted, please. Thanks, Councillor Poposky. Seconded, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually quite difficult to hear you. I can't actually understand what you're saying. Yes, that's council policy.
Is that noisy? Yes, it's very noisy.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep. I apologise about that. People don't normally have trouble hearing me.
No.
No, you're pretty good, it's just the others I can't hear. Your voice is bellowing out.
Right, okay, so we're good. So the workshops there, if there's no questions, a mover and a second that they be noted, please.
Yes.
Councillor Debner and Councillor Hine. No debate, put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 5.1, there's some questions asked by Melissa last meeting with the answers provided there and responses. Um, 5.2.1 from a Mr. Allison from Port Sorell with some questions and the responses to those. Councillor Flowers.
Is that, in that question, thinking I'm, hopefully I'm not behind, to do with the proposed amalgamations? Just that they're stating there with the amalgamation of us, Warratail Wynyard and West Coast, we've never really discussed West Coast, have we?
No, we reached out at the start of the conversations to West Coast, and they made it politely but perfectly clear that they weren't interested in being involved with that.
It says there, and I was just making.
No, we've never had any. Apart from that very first start, we've had no formal or any informal discussions, for that matter, with the West Coast Council.
Yep. Thank
Um,
you.
right, we'll go to public questions. Now, the council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements consistent with the council's core values. Councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect. We expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in dealing with the councillors. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of council meetings and to determine whether the question or statement is out of order due to use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expression. I ask members of the public to show proper consideration and courtesy in these comments. Tonight, I intend to give everybody the opportunity to ask 2 questions or make a 2-minute statement if they wish. Not everyone will probably want to ask questions, but if they do, and then there's still time for people, I may allow some more questions at the end of everyone's opportunity. So, if anyone has a question, if they could come to the podium and state their name and ask their question.
Henry, my name is George. I live in Chawara Road in Chawara. Chawara Road, I want to make a statement if I could.
Yes, certainly.
Chawara Road in Chawara does not need additional traffic generated from the proposed RV caravan park development because many characteristics of the road and surrounding area can be said to be danger points, and adding more traffic into a relatively dangerous road can only increase the risk of collisions in Chawara Road. Some of these contributing factors which could increase risk of collision can be the following. Water Road is long, very narrow, and has gravel shoulders. The speed limit is high at 100 kilometres per hour. Traffic in Trewarra Road consists largely of oversized heavy vehicles such as log trucks, milk tankers, cattle trucks, and even school buses. Trewarra Road is the main artery through Trewarra. Just past the proposed Karen Park, the road turns sharply to the left, restricting visibility ahead prior to the bend. Trewarra Road has a considerable incline, flattening towards the development site and the caretaker's house near the roadside. Considering the above dangerous factors, to add extra caravan-type vehicles with mobile homes from the Karen Parks exit, which is directly and immediately at the edge of Trewarra Road, these vehicles, which the traffic impact statement tells us can be up to 96 vehicles in one day, to enter a road where log trucks, heavy vehicles pass, must run the risk of a possible collision. Amazingly, the traffic impact statement tells us that this extra traffic is not expected to cause any deterioration in the level of traffic performance. So, really, no danger, no collisions? I find this hard to believe. Considering everything I've said, I entreat the councillors not to allow the establishment of the RV Karen Park in Trewarra.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Melissa Wells. I have just a question in relation to the statement that the gentleman made. I'm not sure if this has been factored into it, but the sinkhole and the caves that are at Trewarra, I know that they are very popular to the tourists, and is that traffic factored into that traffic report?
I can't answer that question, Melissa. Dan, you're talking Trewarra Arch, I presume?
Yeah, like I'm just saying that the Trewarra Arch and caves and everything, a lot of people travel that road to go and see that tourist destination.
Yep.
And the data that I'm looking at here, which I've only had a brief moment to look at because I've had a very busy day, which I'll let you know about with my next question. But yeah, I just wonder, has that been factored into it? Because I don't see that in there at all.
Dan?
Yeah, according to the traffic impact assessment, they are prepared by the accredited person who are based on the methodology adopted by state government. So, which is the council under the Local Land Use Planning and Approval Act. Council must accept any report prepared by suitable and accredited person. Yeah.
So, like how they have the traffic counters and things, that'd be so that has been included into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, my second question is in regards to emergency services in the community and the lack of the emergency services in the community. I do outreach in the community, and I've been approached by several people over the past couple of weeks, and actually we've had quite a few incidents in our community. If we go back to the incident with the woman being caged at Woolnorth and domestic violence and abuse, we then go to the small child, the 4-year-old who passed away in our community. And then we also have a stabbing that occurred outside the Bridge Hotel a few weeks ago. And there has now been another couple of incidents in the community over the last couple of weeks involving some really concerning behaviours. And I have found myself advocating on behalf of these community members, finding it difficult to access services, being police services, ambulance services and mental health services particularly, living in the rural community that we do. I think that these things need to be addressed. I did have an opportunity to speak with Jared today, and I asked him to reach out on my behalf and to contact Minister Ellis in regards to the emergency services and Minister Guy Barnett in regards to the mental health issues. And I will be endeavouring to contact all individual councillors and the Deputy Mayor in regards to these incidents, and I would like for you to forward a letter to these ministers on behalf of me and the other members in the community that we are at emergency crisis point. We are at the point where the things that are happening in our community are taking lives. We have already had deaths and we don't need another one. And I feel that this is a very serious incidents, and it's ongoing, and I'd like to know what the council and councillors plan to do about this.
Melissa, as I mentioned to you today in our conversation, I'll do some follow-up and then I'll come back to you as soon as I've done that. We have, as you're aware, been advocating for a long time for some of those services. Our community team do a lot of work in the mental health space and some groups in that space. But as far as snapping our fingers and being able to make something happen, I can't promise you that.
I find that a little condescending, Gerard, because you and I had a meeting with Minister Gents when he was the minister, and nothing has progressed from that meeting. That was over 12 months ago.
Once again, that's not, I can't snap the fingers and make that happen. I can continue to advocate and I can continue to push, which I will do.
So when someone gets their neck snapped, will you act then?
You've had your 2 questions. I've answered your questions, Melissa. I'm not going to get into an argument with you. I feel the pain. I really do. And I've got, in some of the incidents you referred to are unforgivable.
Sexual assaults.
But sitting here and having a backwards and forwards debate is not going to make any. I've committed to follow through, and as a council we will continue to do that. When that, I can't give you a time. Excuse me, sir. Out of the gallery, we don't take questions like that.
Well, there's families in this community that are suffering massive impacts from the lack of services in this community. It's a crisis point. It really is a crisis point. Someone needs to get Felix Ellis on the phone, or Guy Barnett, and get them here in our community and dealing with it now.
Once again, Melissa, I'm not going to have a turn backwards and throw with you. You have my commitment. You have my commitment to come back to you to let you know where it's at.
And I had my commitment from you 12 months ago, Gerard, in regards to the...
And I tried to make attempt to contact you at that stage. You didn't come back to me, so...
Because I'm a very busy woman. I'm doing that, advocating on behalf of many people in this community.
Thank you, Melissa. Can you resume your seat?
Yes, I'll resume my seat.
Thank you.
But I will not be quiet. I will not remain silent.
Please, if you don't remain silent, I'll have to ask you to leave.
What, you'll bring the police on me and have me arrested?
I would. Any more questions?
Well, you'd be lucky to get the police, I reckon.
I was about the...
Can I have a name, please?
Oh, sorry. Patricia South.
Thank you.
I live on Reynolds Road, so going to the Arch. And at no such time has there been a counter on the road going to the Arch. And my husband and myself have counted in the busy times in summer in excess of 500 cars going past our house, and it makes a lot of dust as well. I failed to understand how they could get the numbers for the amount of vehicles that they've said that we have. You know, that's been factored into that number. And also was wondering even if we could just get that bit of road sealed from the bottom of the rise to past the hay shed, it would reduce the dust, and it impacts my breathing and my washing, with the washing out and all the dust. Sometimes you can hardly see in front of yourself, the dust is so thick.
Thank you. I can't give you a straight answer on that right now. We'll take that on notice and come back to you in due course.
Could I ask one more?
Yes, certainly.
I was just also wondering when have they looked into the amount of wildlife, endangered wildlife, that actually resides in the very close vicinity of where the proposed park
Yes, please, Dan.
Thank you for your question. The wildlife is a different aspect of the planning scheme. So under the planning scheme, we should look at what is the existing overlay within the area of the development side. And unfortunately, within the development side, there is no native vegetation or potential habitat for certain species or something, so we cannot trigger that
there's the
assessment.
spotted polar dot, it's an endangered bird. And also there's the Tasmanian devil. It resides in like 200 to 400 metres from that park. And also echidnas, and there's like the thing with the pouch, and also bandicoots and stuff as well. There's travel all times of the day and night, and always seeing these kind of animals crossing around about that area.
This is not a planning relevant to the planning assessment, but if at that point, we will appreciate that point from you. So if you think that around the area has some kind of threatened
Yeah, I
species,
just think that.
so if you have the evidence to say that, so you should send an email to the NRE, the conservation office. So they should do something, but under planning, council cannot do anything if there is no overlay or anything triggered in planning assessment. Yeah.
Just thought they would have, taken that into consideration.
Yeah. No.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Jennifer Oscroft. I got all the signatures.
That's all right, no need to know.
I didn't write this down, it's from my heart. My partner and I moved here just 2 years ago from the mainland. He retired from Navy veteran. He wanted somewhere away from everything he needs, quiet, after being in the Gulf. You can hear a pin drop at our place. It is day and night. Thought our little viewing area, when he built at the back, the thought that our viewing area is going to be changed from farmland to looking at 80 RVs. Always in their statement, sorry. They say that they're going to have quiet time from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's the rest of the time. We'll have 100 people there, and they're allowed motorbikes and I just can't imagine that our little area is going to be reduced to this. We're a tight-knit community. Everybody, no one fights. We all get on. We all help each other. And we swap produce. We swap our animals. Chickens and ducks and lambs, and we're all like little hobby farms. I don't understand what this can bring to our community except grief. We've all been so stressed. It's just they come in, they can turn into an RV park. I took some photos. I don't know if I'm allowed to show you, but that's our view. That's going to be 80 RVs and lighting at night time. And I know that they've said there wouldn't be lighting that would interfere, but by the plans they have to have lighting. That's our dark corridor. We don't even have a street light up our end. We have Tasmanian devils and paddy melons, and I know it's not a planning issue, Dan. I'm the one pulling the roadkill off the road and checking pouches every day. I'm the one gasping for breath when a logging truck goes past and there isn't enough room for a motorist to go around them. And we'll be the ones that try and call emergency in from Smithton if an RV or a logging truck goes off the shoulder into one of our houses. I don't see any sense. I don't. There is so much grief. We've all lost sleep over it. I haven't been to bed. I've looked through all these pages you've got online. Most of it goes over my head. That's why I can only do this from my heart. It's a tiny community. I have a big enough job trying to pull the wildlife off the road now and check pouches. We've seen so many near misses. I really hope this stays as agricultural land, because we couldn't live there if there was going to be that many people there all the time. They don't bring anything to the community. It's for money making. It's just going to cause grief. But I'd really like you to consider what it's going to do to the residents. And I really wasn't going to cry today. I'm sorry.
I need to be sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
We received a letter saying that an application for...
Could I have a name, please, Cover?
Oh, sorry, my name is John.
John, thank you.
John Lawrence. Call me Lawrence. So we have a letter stating that on tonight's agenda will be a development and subdivision of John Street, Smithton and Rockland Road in Smithton. And I'm assuming this is the time that
Yes, yeah, but
is
I'm
going
not.
to be discussed.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. We've got the planners. They can answer any planning questions for you. Yeah.
Say that, I'm sorry, I can't understand.
The planners here can answer any questions you've got about the planning side of it.
Yep, okay. All right, well, there are three questions, so I'll ask two. Now, our property adjoins some of the John Street development, and running down is this very narrow strip of land with very large trees on it. And the proposal is going to dig a 3-metre trench or an easement within about 300 to 500 millimetres of quite large trees. And of course, because it's being dug on the development side, the trees are likely to fall towards our side, so that there's a risk factor for us. So the first question I have is, why was there no arborist report for this development?
Well, please, Kat, thank you. Thanks, Kat.
As those trees are not within the boundaries of the development and they aren't protected under the priority vegetation layer, they aren't a planning consideration for this development and were not needed to be addressed by the applicant.
Although they represent a safety issue for us.
It's not a planning concern under the planning scheme.
So where would you, so if I don't want these trees falling on me and my family, what am I meant to do?
It's something that will have to be coordinated between yourself and the developers. It's not a part of the council's planning consideration.
These trees are not on our property, they are adjoining it. And of course, removal of these trees would be quite expensive, so it's a ridiculous thing to say that I should talk to the developer. The developer's just going to dig his trench. It's about money.
Unfortunately, as a part of the planning assessment, we couldn't address it.
Okay, perhaps I need a legal opinion on that. But so then the second question is more or less in the same ballpark, that what happens when these trees start to die and fall over? What are we supposed to do? Is the council going to guarantee us that they will come and remove these trees? They're very large. There's about, I think I counted, Well, between 10 and 20 large trees. If you count the smaller ones, there's more. They will fall across a driveway, and one of them might actually threaten where the neighbours park their cars. They will hit, we've got a heritage property, and they will land on 100-year-old trees. I mean, basically, we'll be sitting within reach of the trees. So the only building that they would destroy would be an old greenhouse, but it is in a space that we use more than any other. It does represent a risk to us and a risk to the other trees. So the question again is, what happens if these trees start to fall over and die? What do we do then? What are you doing to protect your council rather than your property developers?
I can say that if something becomes dangerous, we do have the ability to follow that through into a removal space as council if we receive some form of complaint that something is dangerous.
So what is the, and who would pay for the removal of those trees under those circumstances? I'm sorry.
Well, we'll take that bit on notice, but I would presume it would be the owner of the property. I would presume, but we'll take that on notice.
There is no established owner of the property. Now, the council has said that they're looking for the owner of that street.
Yeah, right, okay.
That would have been my third question.
Yep.
Have they been tracked down?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Look, I need to take that on notice. I can't give you an answer.
Thank you. And how will I get the answer?
We'll respond in writing to you. So,
through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's got rates outstanding on it, so we'll go through a sale process at the end of this year to actually sell that property. So if you're interested in buying it, we're quite welcome to come along to the auction. And
when you're talking about destabilising 10 to 20 big trees, we're not anxious to own that.
Yeah, no, I know.
We would have been, but they didn't want it.
we'll need your address or email address so we can respond in due course.
18 Rockland Road, or is there someone I should leave that with?
18.
There's some paper at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologise for my interjection.
No problem at all. Thank you. Any further questions? Yep.
Harry Humphrey, and I live at Tawada. 24 years. Suddenly there's going to be 100 and 150 people next door to us. And honestly, that's why I live there. It's going to become my retirement home. I want to die there. And I don't want all these people walking around past my house and driving their RVs. That's such a quiet, it's God country. And that's all going to be gone. Just like that, you know. Quality of life just gone. I'll be put into a position where I'll have to sell my house, you know. I brought all the kids up there, got 10 grandchildren. All these people that come over from the mainland and all these travellers, we don't know any of them. I'll be telling my grandkids, no, don't go outside, don't go for a walk. No, and practice all.
Thank you.
You know, it's at home.
Thank you. Any further questions or statements?
Can I ask one more question?
Right, Melissa, one question.
In regards to the road, and I live on Backline, I have a property on Backline Road, I don't live there. And I've noticed what's happening there at the moment, how they're widening the road, has, due to the fact that there's a lot of big infrastructure that drives on that road, is the Tawada Road, from the way I see it, the Tawada Road's in a very similar condition as Backline Road, as in the width, no white lines, shoulder, graded gravel shoulders, sorry. Is there or will there in the future be a proposal to perhaps upgrade the Tawada Road to the conditions similar to what is happening on Backline Road?
There wouldn't be in the system at the moment.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, there currently isn't any proposal to widen Trawada Road, but certainly we can investigate the need for that, especially when it becomes time to renew the steel asset on Trawada Road. We would always look at that as an option.
So, what was the basis that it was decided for the work to be done on Backline Road? Was there a criteria or something as to why that was chosen to be done?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor.
Or just because a fellow councillor lives on it?
No, there would have been a range of...
Sorry.
I can reveal, we can stop that.
Oh, you do too, that's right. You just own a property on it like me. Sorry about that, Clousy. I do apologise.
All right, just stop your chatting.
Yeah, there would have been a range of criteria there, so it would be traffic volume, the existing width and geometry of the road. And we also had a few community requests around traffic safety for that one. So we actually also coincided it with the replacement of the seal on Backline Road. So that was why we're doing it at this time.
Sorry, I forgot we had a new mayor. I thought we were dealing with our old mayor and doing favours for the fellow.
Thanks, Melissa. No, thank you. Right, no further questions? Thank you. 6.1 planning. I remind councillors we're now sitting as a planning authority and must act within the guidelines there. 6.1, which is the Tawada Road RV Park. Is that you, Dan?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The application details a proposal for change of use for the old football ground, sport and recreation use, to RV park and managers residence visitor accommodation use for that one. On land at 2239 Tawada Road, Tawada. The property has an area of 6.5 hectares. The site is zoned agriculture and overlaid by the bushfire bronze area under the Tasmanian Planning Scheme Circular Head. The proposed RV park and manager residence will rely on the site existing facilities, including the clubhouse and the football ground. The proposal will use two existing accesses to Tawada Road. The proposed RV park will be for the self-contained vehicles only. The applicant was placed on public exhibition and one representation was received during the advertising period. The representation details supporting signature of the 30 people claimed to be the Tawada residents. The issue raised by the representative include the first one is the property was given to the Tawada residents by the original owner of the football club and was illegally taken by the ground and sold to the current owner. This 6.5 hectare of land is zoned rural or farming, and the planning response to this issue is this is not a planning matter for consideration in this report. The property is zoned agriculture under the Tasmanian Planning Scheme Circular Head, not a rural or farming zone. The second issue raised is the RV park will significantly negatively impact the quality and peaceful lives of the Tawada residents with noise, traffic, and pollution of the fertile soil and water. There's no reticulated water and sewer system in Tawada. The planning response to this issue is the potential impacts of the land and surrounding properties are foreseen at traffic generation, noise, and pollution from the use. And for the pollution consideration, the proposed RV park is only for self-contained vehicles, and there's no proposal to discharge waste on the site, including the grey water. So there is a recommendation for the condition to restrict the use of the self-contained vehicles only. So there is no foreseen pollution further from that. Traffic generation consideration from the traffic engineering report and the road safety perspective in consideration. The additional traffic generated from this development is not expected to create any adverse safety, amenity, or traffic efficiency problems to the Tawada Road, according to the accredited person who prepared the traffic impact assessment. and the traffic generated is considered low. There is sufficient capacity within the surrounding road network to absorb extra traffic movements, and the surrounding road network is fit for proposed to carry passenger and recreational vehicles expected to be generated by this development. The next consideration is noise. Within 200 meters from the site, there are 3 existing sensitive use as detailed in the map provided in the report. There's a hedging plan to the west and north boundary of the property, creating a natural buffer from any noise emission that may occur from the proposed use. And the other thing is the football ground has a higher topography from the other surrounding property, so which is the provided natural buffer as well to prevent noise. And the other consideration is the RV park rules require the quiet time to observe from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So that antisocial behavior will not be tolerated. On that basis, the proposed development will unlikely to impact the concern of the raised in the letter, and this does not impact the quality and peaceful lives of the Tawara residents. The third issue raised by the draft is the additional lighting needed for the RV park would negatively impact not only the residents but also the native wildlife. The planning response for this issue, and the first one is the native wildlife. This is not a planning matter because within the site there's no overlay that might trigger assessment under like the biovegetation or other factor that require the assessment under the planning. And the other thing is the lighting, additional lighting is not included in this proposal. So we make very clear in the planning permit condition and the note that this is not for any additional lighting. And the fourth issue is no existing public amenities in Tawara, such as shop, supermarket, or post office to support an RV park. And again, this is not a planning matter for consideration, and this is for the full self-contained vehicles only. The fifth issue is there are numerous RV parking camping sites in and around Takai. Most are free. And the planning response for it is this is not a planning matter to consider. Every proposed development is assessed under a planning scheme subject to each applicable merit. The sixth issue is raised by the concern of the speed limit on Tawara Road is 100 km/h limit. There's a sweeping band just before the entry to the proposed RV park. Vehicle coming around the band doing 100 km and being met the RV slowing, turning in and out of the property is an accident waiting to happen. So the Tawara is more parked unmarked and barely wide enough for a lane going either way to let alone accommodating in and out traffic from the RV park. So this is a concern about the safety of the road to contain more vehicle coming in and out. So according to the traffic impact assessment, it clearly says that the traffic generated by the proposal is not impact to the road, is the first thing. The second thing is no crash have been reported in Tawara Road in the vicinity of the development site in the last 5 years, according to the Department of State Growth database. And the other thing is the from in and out entry and exit side. There's very good side to see, the upcoming vehicle to coming and out. So that the side distance, yeah, that's the word. Yeah. So within those considerations, that the condition and the other thing to consider is the concern whether the upgrade of the Tawara is necessary, is needed by this development. And according to the traffic impact assessment, no infrastructure upgrade required from council perspective. And the other thing is the entry and exit points required an upgrade to the standard. So that's the condition have been recommended that all costs related to the proposed development must be met by the developer. And on that basis, the proposed development does not unreasonably impact the traffic safety and amenity on Tawara Road. And the planning assessment, the subject site is on agriculture, and it doesn't meet all the acceptable solution under the scheme. The discretionary items include the discretionary use for the visitor accommodation, the setback, and traffic generation at vehicle crossing. From planning assessment as detailed in the report, it is considered that the proposal can meet these standards, performance criteria, and objectives. So on that basis, the planning officer is recommending approval with condition as detailed in the report.
Thanks, Dan. Is there any questions that might have before I ask for a mover or seconder? Thanks. No, you're right. You don't
stand for that one? Okay. With respect to the speed issue, so the Department of State Growth, do they manage speed limits? Yep. So DSG, under their conditions of, was it sight lines, sight distances?
Yeah.
That complies still with a 100 kilometre hour speed limit?
Yes, there are methodology that the traffic impact assessor must be followed according to the state methodology, the adopted one. So under that, they need to meet the side distance as specific range, right? Yeah.
So if we were to suggest a change to the speed limit around that area, given that they meet the criteria for 100 kilometres an hour, would we have any luck with that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it'd be a separate process to this, obviously, but
yeah,
it'd be impossible to say what the Transport Commission
would
approve.
Yeah.
It'd rely upon meeting a range of other criteria as well as just sight distance. Things like density of driveway accesses, road geometry, traffic volumes.
Right. Good. Yeah, I just imagine those traffic volumes would vary significantly over summer, obviously, from October through to March with tourist traffic versus now it's chalk and cheese. So it'll be an interesting thing to see what their figures would say.
Okay, that's something to consider maybe later on. Any other questions? If not, is there someone prepared to move the resolution?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Thanks, Councillor Popovsky. Have we a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thanks, Councillor Hine. You wish to speak, Councillor Popovsky?
Yes, I will, thank you, Mr Mayor. We've workshopped this development application thoroughly, had a few questions, a few discussions. I listened to intent from the speakers from the floor, and having a long association with the Tawada area and over a long period of time, I hear what they say about the traffic density and speed. I could probably assure you that at this stage the traffic is minimal to what it used to be some 10 years ago due to the change of plantations and the forestry. It also, I can recall back in the 80s of holding sporting events like the Tawada Show, the local football team and the cricket team, and we even had dancers in the hall across the road. So, yes, I hear what you say, 100 odd people may be there. Hopefully it becomes a good tourist area out there to visit, but that's a lot of numbers for that area and it's a grand plan, and I feel, and I take on board what was said, that there is a disturbance to the way of life at the present, but I can assure you it was a lot busier area 30 or 40 years ago, and I think it will be hopefully in the future that gives us another tourist attraction to be able to use in the district.
Thanks, Councillor Popovsky. Councillor Hine, you wish to speak?
No, I actually summed it up pretty well. I've actually played football and chopped and all those sort of things on that ground, and it's probably only through ill-thought federal government policy of the manager investment schemes that's actually decimated that area and now got it into plantation rather than a very viable rural area. It was a potato seed area for Tasmania in the past, and could well go back to that in the future. And so I see this as a plus as far as tourism and an asset to that area.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Or against? No, I'll be supporting. I'm hearing what the statements have been made, but also we have to make our decisions at this under the planning scheme, and that's been outlined where we stand with that. So I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 6.2 John Street. Is that you, Kat? Thanks, Dan. Thanks, gentlemen.
Something I said.
Are we right to stay at the back?
You can go home.
Yeah, you can just sit up the back. Yes, Kat, thank you.
Okay. So I'm here to present the subdivision at John Street, Lot 3 and 4 John Street, Smithton and Rockland Road. The application details a proposal for a subdivision of 3 lots into 44 lots, with 2 of those lots being the balance lot and an access lot for that balance. The plans for this subdivision are on pages 269 to 271 of your agenda. The site has an area of 13.46 hectares and is a vacant paddock block. The proposed smaller 42 lots are within the general residential zone and the balance lot is within the rural zone. The subdivision will have 2 new road junctions entering from John Street and an internal junction. The subdivision also contains 2 internal roads. A footpath will be provided on one side of the internal roads. 1 representation was received during the advertising period. The main concerns of this representative was that the proposal for services to run adjacent to the western boundary will destabilise the trees on the adjoining property and cause a number of issues. Damage to adjoining properties and blocking of their driveways, safety concerns for neighbours, and damage to the gardens on the heritage listed property at 18 Rockland Road, as it is to the west of the Treefield property. The representatives are also concerned about the future legal liability for any of the damage done by those trees and whether the developer will be responsible for resolving any possible issues. The issues raised by this representative are not planning concerns and therefore do not impact the recommendation for approval. The proposed subdivision meets all performance criteria as outlined in my planning report for the discretions on lot design, roads, and sensitive use lot design within an attenuation area. It is recommended for Council to provide conditional approval for the proposed subdivision.
Thanks, Kat. Is there any questions to Kat on this? If not, yes.
So the trees are really out of our control. We can't sort of do nothing about the trees.
They aren't on the property that is being developed and therefore don't have to be considered, and they aren't protected under the priority vegetation line, so there isn't even a buffer of area that would need to be considered. So there's nothing under planning that would protect them.
So we can't make a move the sewage line to a different spot?
No.
How far from the trees exactly does that?
Let me bring it up.
If they're inside a different property?
Yes. So the sewerage and other services are right on that boundary and they are on the next block next to it. I'm uncertain as to what exact distances 2 trees are, but those services do run pretty flush with the boundary.
Good answer. The tree.
No, sorry, it's not, no, I'm not allowed, basically. Sorry.
300 metres.
Nicely put. All right, they nicely got in.
So, if we was to want to remove the trees, someone want to remove the trees, what's the process?
That would just be a civil matter of removing trees. They're not protected under planning, so if the owner of the block wanted to remove them, we wouldn't have any say in that removal from a planning perspective.
I thought you said they were protected.
They're not.
Can I ask another question? When the Minister for Finance has said that that property may be coming up for sale, is the value of the trees on the ground cost recoverable for putting them on the ground into wood. Would it be in the picture, or is it just would cost a lot of money to?
It's outside this. It's outside this. What we're doing here, Ash. It's a question for later days. Yep. It's outside this planning matter. But I would presume, if the trees become dangerous, we have powers or whatever and actions we can take at that point in time. It's just finding an owner and how we'd handle that. So, Councillor Hine?
Yes, a question. What's the width of the property that we don't know who the owner is?
That's, Councillor Hine, that's not to do with this planning what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the planning matter in front of us. So there's no questions about the planning matter. We can come back to that at a later date. No questions about the planning matter. Is there a move and a second that planning resolution be accepted?
I'll move.
Since Councillor Hine, seconded Councillor Flowers. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Hine?
No, I think it's well presented, etc., and if it can generate another 40-odd houses, etc., in Smithton, that's what we need to do. But it's up to the individual whether they want to buy and go and locate to there.
Councillor Flowers?
Yeah, I'm just happy to see more subdivisions in the area, give opportunity for more people to build. We've got to have them, otherwise they're going to build in Wynyard, Secretary.
Another different story, but yeah. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? No, I'll be, once again, the same as before. I'm hearing the concerns, but we're dealing this as a planning matter, so I'll be supporting it under that, for that reason. I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now the sign, Kat, again.
We can get
Steve
back,
back
in.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's coming back. Thanks, Steve. Councillor Hine, sorry. Councillor Pilkington, sorry.
Swearing again.
It's been a long day. I'll get a hiding from both of you two gentlemen later. Sorry, Kat, yes.
So this is for DA 2024-31, a ground-based sign. The application details a proposal to construct a ground-based sign, real estate signage, on land at the subdivision road between 96 and 98 King Street, Smithton. The property is a future subdivision road parcel and is planned to be developed into a road for the approved 109-lot subdivision at Massey Street. The proposed signage is to advertise the approved subdivision. Concerns have been raised about whether the sign would be capable of receiving an exemption under a real estate sign. Under the planning scheme, real estate signs are only able to be an exemption if they meet the requirements, which is to be erected only on the land for which the property is for let, lease or for sale. The proposed sign is not on land for sale, as the location of the sign will become a road/road reserve for the approved subdivision, and the property will never be for sale, as once the road is built, it will be transferred to council ownership. The sign will not be erected on land for which the property is for sale and therefore does not meet the exemption requirements. A real estate sign that does not meet the exemption requirements is prohibited, but council has allowed the sign to be classified as a ground-based sign to provide a pathway to a permit. The proposed sign will be placed 2 metres from the eastern boundary at 98 King Street and 4.5 metres from the frontage. The sign will have a height of 3.2 metres and a width of 4.8 metres and will be elevated 1 metre off the ground and therefore with a maximum height of 4.2 metres. The sign is discretionary as it is a third-party sign due to it not being on the site of the advertised product and does not meet the acceptable solutions for size and height. But the sign meets all performance criteria underneath this. The application received one representation during the advertising period, which has the following concerns with the proposal. Concern number 1 is the suitability of the construction of the sign, as a similar sign was previously erected and was removed due to collapsing. This is not a planning concern, that is a building concern. Concern number 2 is that both the eastern and western adjoining properties have a right-of-way over the site. A condition has been recommended to address this concern, condition 3, as seen on page 280 of the agenda, which is that the adjoining properties have right-of-ways over the entire site. Please ensure that the proposed sign is sited so that the adjoining properties have access through the site. Concern number 3 is that the eastern property has a sewer connection that goes through the site. A condition has been added to address this concern, condition 2, which is that before installation, the developers must locate the adjoining property's service connection infrastructure and ensure that they are not obstructed or damaged by the proposed sign. Recent correspondence with the applicant has pulled the legality of the known sewer infrastructure and preliminary events into question, and the preliminary investigations have found that the sewer infrastructure on the subject site is likely to be Taswater owned and therefore exempt from requiring a permit. And that is not a concern for this planning matter. The temporary nature of the sign is the fourth and final concern of the representatives, as the representatives think it would be appropriate for the sign to be removed or moved after the subdivision road is constructed. A condition was added to address this concern. This is condition 4, that once the construction of the previously approved road on the site has commenced, the proposed sign must be removed. The applicant has recently corresponded with council, which you have all received as emails, stating that they believe that condition 4 is unreasonable and have suggested a change in the condition to once all lots in stage 1A of the subdivision development being advertised are sold, the sign must be removed. If the sales of these lots are not completed prior to the dedication of the road reserve to council ownership, the proponent must secure a permit from the road authority to enable the sign to remain within the public road reserve. As a compromise, we would like to suggest for you to amend condition 4. This amendment would remove condition 4 and replace with 2 new conditions. 4A, that the sign is not to be placed closer than 2 metres to the boundary of 98 King Street. And 4B, once the subject site is transferred to ownership of council, the proposed sign must be removed. The proposed new condition 4A is suggested to be put in place to ensure the sign does not create a new discretion by not meeting section C1.6.1A2 of the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, as a new discretion would require a new planning permit. And condition 4B is suggested as council does not allow advertisement signs to be placed within our road reserves, and therefore once the parcel is transferred to us, the sign will not be capable of receiving a permit. This suggested condition will allow the applicants to maintain the sign on the site during and after construction until the point where the parcel is transferred to council and a permit will no longer be possible. The developer has agreed that the suggested amendment to the conditions are reasonable. It is recommended that council provide conditional approval for the sign.
Right. Is there any questions firstly? The way to proceed is I need a mover and a seconder for the resolution and then a mover and a seconder if we're for those amendments if we the Cat has just put forward. So is there a mover and seconder for the thanks Councillor Hines, seconded Councillor Flowers, thank you. Councillor Dawes, you happy to move that amendment?
Yes, I'd like to move the amendment and change the items 4A and B as outlined by Kat.
Right.
To the new. Got a seconder.
Seconded, Councillor Pilkington. Right, anyone wish to speak that we deal with yours and that person wish to speak to it?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to go with the information that Kat's given us and the email that was sent to the people that were concerned.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Pilkington.
Same, I'm happy with it.
No other discussion? Put the motion, those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Well done, Kat, thank you.
Good job.
Right, so, there's nothing there about, so questions without notice. Councillor questions without notice. Councillor Flowers.
Last month I asked a question about state growth with Hume spraying the roundabout down there.
Oh, down here?
Oh, the road, yes.
Which I didn't get a reply to. So,
I'm sorry, I thought we had.
oh, it's normally in the minutes and I can't see nothing in there. I haven't seen anything else.
Right.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, we'll take it on notice and follow that up, but we did come up with a response.
We
but
did,
might not have made it to the minutes.
I apologise that
Can
wasn't...
you remember roughly what the response was?
Yes, the response was, yes, it's a DSG roundabout, and you communicated with DSG about the spraying. It was the spraying around that as well,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, like one of my questions was, I was being led to believe when you're inside a town boundary on a state government road, if it's curb and channel, from there on, it's maintained by council. So if there's a footpath there, it's council's footpath. It's not state government's footpath. Now, if they're spraying excessively, which they are, they shouldn't be spraying inside a town boundary over a footpath or over a curb and channel. Because once you go to that curb and channel, what I've led to believe, that is maintained by council.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, we will follow up on that because we probably only partly answered the question in truth. So I didn't receive a response from DSG on that, so we'll follow it up here.
Apologies, Councillor Flowers, but we'll chase that down.
No, just that all the years that when you go to Stanley, where the state government road goes right through to the wharf, where there's a footpath or anything, that's all maintained by council. State government don't maintain it. And I know with the slashing in there, I used to do the slashing for council, not for state roads, but it was on their road.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hine, you looked at the automatically.
Yeah, on the same note, but going back to the previous council meeting at Rocky Cape, I asked some questions on what the cost estimates were, re the section of the Old Stanley Road, and then asked questions of what standard that was priced at, and as yet there was nothing in the minutes, and I've seen nothing since.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we have high-level estimate information which be happy to share, so we can take that on notice. And
I'm not going to debate, but I thought that information had been passed on, but I'll stand to be corrected.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think there was a response along the lines that we'd provided high-level information, but until that road came up for actual work, wasn't cost-effective use of resources to do the quite detailed work that you were actually requesting, which would take a bit of time and resource.
That's what I'm recalling.
through you, Mr Mayor, yeah, the high-level information has been communicated. Yeah, but
Can I ask that resent then, because I've obviously missed it, but
Yep.
It was a simple question of what the standard of the estimate costs were that was provided to actually marry that with actually the cost you provided married with the standard that was set on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Hine. Councillor Flowers?
I'm referring to the outside workforce and even the office here, all the vehicles. None of the vehicles seem to have Circular Council emblem on them. I've done a bit of homework. West Coast Council have, Wynyard Waratah do, Burnie do, Central Coast do, but strangely enough, we don't. Not even the trailers, nothing. What I've been taking notice lately, it's just plain old, a sticker would probably cost us $20 max. It just shows the public out there that who's mucking around their house or around their street or whatever they're doing. It just gives a bit of insurance. And when you see them on the road, you can say, well, that's our council vehicle. Or if they're asleep up the back track, that's our council vehicle. But at the moment, you've got to go and tap on the window and say, well, who are you?
The last bit was quite neat, was Councillor Flowers.
So I was just wondering why we haven't got them on our, like right down to even the mayor's car should have a sticker on it. He shouldn't be running around with hiding from everyone. Let everyone know who he is.
Well, I think we better take that on notice.
Yeah. We'll take it on notice. I'll talk to you later. We had a quick chat about it, but we'll take that on notice and have a formal reply, come back with that.
No, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you. Moving on. 8.1, Councillor Pilkington.
I move that Council advocates to the Premier and Minister for Transport in support of an improved shipping service between King Island, Victoria and Stanley.
Seconder to the motion?
I'll second that.
Councillor Debner. Councillor Pilkington.
I'd like to move an amendment to that motion, changing it slightly. That the Council seek the cooperation of the King Island Council in advocating to the Premier and the Minister for Transport for an improved shipping service between King Island, Stanley and Victoria.
You happy with that, Councillor Debner?
Very.
Thank you. Councillor Pilkington, you suspect your motion?
Righto. Now, the state of shipping between King Island and mainly Tasmania is in an atrocious state. It's proved totally inadequate in the last 12 months, but it was staggering along anyway. King Island have no regular service to the mainland, and it's the responsibility of the state government to provide transport to its citizens. In the future, I believe there will be a proper shipping service between King Island, the mainland and Tasmania, and it's important that Stanley remain the port in Tasmania for our economy. With the right ship, it would be to tremendous economic benefit to King Island and Circular Head and Tasmania in general. Tourism, industry, everyone would benefit. And I think I've given background information, but I think it's a good project for us to push for.
Thanks, Councillor Pilkington. Councillor Debner, you wish to speak?
Yes, in support of this one. I think it's an excellent idea. I think when that last vessel was taken out of service back in 8 or 9 years ago.
Well over that.
Well over that.
7 years ago, I think.
The government did promise them a replacement, whatever a government promise means these days. But I think the point is that they did promise something, and at this point, while it still hasn't been provided, I see Circular Head as the only deepwater port we've got in Stanley, as Circular Head's port. And if we don't ask, we don't get. So if I think it's well worth lobbying the government to for future development of Circular Head to at least get that one service in, and hopefully that can lead to some bigger and better things as well.
Thanks, Councillor Debner. Councillor Flowers, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'll be supporting the motion. We've got to try and get this up and running, otherwise someone from Victoria is going to come in and take all the cattle that is produced on the islands, and that'll be a major hiccup for this municipality because a lot of cattle come out of King Island to Greenhams. We can't afford to lose that. We can't, neither can Greenhams, and probably neither can Swift further up the coast, but something's got to be done, otherwise they will be going to Victoria. I can see that, and we definitely don't want that. It's going to hurt this municipality big time if they go to Victoria. But we've got to get King Island Council on our side. Really they should be pushing this, but we can start the ball.
Thanks, Councillor Flowers. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Hine?
Yes, I write to support it to the extent that I think with modern day shipping improvements, it could might fit into the trimarine design that the US Navy are actually getting 15 of currently built, and they've got them in service now. And they range from about 120 to 150 metres in length. The old Seaway Mersey had a draft of 5.5 metres. These trimarans actually got a draft of about 3 metres. I'm privileged to have been on a committee that looked at replacing what could we replace the Spirits with, and there is a Pendamarang design available, and that was looked at, but the alternative may well have been the trimarans, and the sea state of the strait, the research that was done There's only one day in 12 months that the trimarans would not be able to fly between Tassie and Victoria, and there was only about 6 days, I think, that they had to slow down. The speed of those is nearly double what the old Seaway Mersey was, and a proposal to go into Western Port or Hastings, direct off the sea, means that the route from Stanley, or Devonport at that case time, was only 2/3 the distance going up Port Phillip Bay, but it's also a fact that you're straight off the sea and not up a channel like that goes into Melbourne. So I fully support it, to the extent that we probably ought to be setting up some sort of a working party to try and work with King Island and see what we can do.
Thanks, Councillor Hine. Any other speakers? I'll be supporting. I think it's a long project. Obviously, to get all the parties on board. But if you don't start a project somewhere, it won't start. So I'll be supporting that. And just for the records, I did have a chat to Graham Pretty. He's quite happy to share all the information they've got on the stuff that they've done once we get to a stage of actually getting into meaty stuff, so, which was good. So, no further ado, I'll put that motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We're now up to 9, where Rachel comes into her own. 9.1, financial reports.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we've got the finance report for the period that ended 31st of May 2024 before you. We received no applications for first homeowners grant, acknowledging 6 in total for the year so far. In terms of the comprehensive income statement, currently sitting at in that first column there on page 315, sitting at a deficit of 3.37 million. At the end of May. The main reason for this is that we haven't yet received the financial assistance grants for the year. So this stage we've received notification that 85% of those will be paid in advance. So we'll be getting them in the next, or hopefully before the end of next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those grants are actually recognised when they come in as well too. So hopefully they're received before the 30th of June. Council also should be receiving money for Roads to Recovery, so we've got $2.4 million in Roads to Recovery to come in before the end of next week as well too. So looking in terms of cash balance, on page 316 we've currently got 14.6 million, and with those financial assistance grants and Roads to Recovery and the money that we'll spend in payments in the next couple of weeks, should bring us around about that $8.5 million cash balance at the end of the financial year. In terms of, on page 318, we've got the receivables there. The proportion of rates uncollected actually looks like it's less than last year, but it's actually still in credit, so we've actually got more people paid in advance than what we have in actually debts outstanding, which is interesting. So we've collected everything that we've actually raised this financial year. We've finally received the grants, the bridge grants from the state government as well too, so they've come out of the sundry debtors balance there. You can see the 60 plus days has been reduced by about that 400,000. In terms of page 319, we've got cash and investments there, so mostly in the 4s at the moment. We did have that at call sitting there, just depending on whether the financial assistance grants and the Roads Recovery money actually come in or not, because we didn't want to run cheque account in overdraft. So that's just been sitting there to wait and see until the end of June to make sure that those funds come in. We then have the service area reports, the net result for each of the service areas. The first one probably looks a bit funny too, because that's missing the road component of the financial assistance grants as well as the roads recovery funding, so that's actually quite low at the minute. And we have the cash and investments comparison. I'll present that for Council's consideration, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions? Councillor Hine.
Yes, on page 316, what's the merchandise you're talking about, note 10, and it's good to see that there's a big increase in that. What sort of merchandise are you talking about?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's out at the visitor centre, so there's a whole, you've obviously been in the visitor centre out there, Councillor Hine, where you've seen all the merchandise that's actually in there. So that's actually going gangbusters, and they're selling an awful lot actually out there, way more than what they thought they were going to. So, yeah, so that's what that's for. So when we first did the budget, 12 odd months ago and now, before a lot of the merchandise actually came in, it was probably fairly conservative in terms of what we budgeted because we weren't sure how it was going to go. So then things could be a bit fickle sometimes, but it's actually going really well, and Kim's struggling to keep up with what people are buying. So, yeah, which is great. So it's got some local stuff in there, mostly local stuff in there as well too, which is good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Any further questions? Yes, again, Councillor Hine.
317, I think it is. The $12 million reduction in total equity. What's the explanation, or have you got anything to sort of back that up as far as?
So you're talking about the balance sheet?
On 317, you've got...
Yep, 317.
From 2023, you had a total equity of 270 million, and 24 is back to
267.
256, yeah. 258 rather on this figure. I've got.
Yeah, that's the budget.
Yep.
So that middle column there's the budget.
Yep.
So it's actually reduced from 270 back to 267.
Right.
And look, the bulk of it up the top looks like it's actually the cash balance.
Right.
So in terms of total current assets, the cash balance at the end of last year was 18.6 million, and we've currently only got 14.6. So there's obviously some ups and some downs in there, but the bulk of it is the cash balance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No further questions?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
One more, brother.
Right, keep going on 319. To date, we have 70,000 more than last year owed via rates. What's the arrangement has been entered into for that amount to be paid, and how much of the outstanding amount of last year's amount is still outstanding?
I'll have to take that one on notice, Mr Mayor.
Take that on notice?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Have you got that, through Mr Mayor, have you got that written down there?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, can you email that to Matt if that's
okay? It's only as a
okay?
note, but I can probably do that, yeah.
Yeah, if you can put that on an email to Matt, that'd be great, because just make sure I get the wording right, because when I get out of here...
It's my wording, but you might...
Oh, that's all right. I'm sure I can interpret.
Thank you. No further questions? Could I have a move and a second that they be accepted? Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Second, Councillor Pilkington. Put the motion, those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Rachel, again, related party transactions policy.
Can I just go back to the previous one too, Mr Mayor?
Certainly can. We'll reverse.
Just in terms of, we are going through the auction process as well later on in the year in terms of selling those properties with 3 years or more rates outstanding. So there would only be up to 3 or 4 years actually outstanding, so there wouldn't be any older than that, because we went through a sale process a number of years ago as well too. So, but I understand what you mean in terms of how much is carried forward from 1 year to the next. So that'll all get caught up in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on that, please? With the 3 years, 3 years don't seem that long a time for unpaid rates, because if someone's doing it a little bit tough, 3 years is not that long.
Yep.
I know some of the farmers that they're probably not doing it at the moment, but in the past 3 years, I know myself in the early days, I
Yep.
was probably 2 years behind.
Yep.
You catch up, but I'd hate selling up someone for 3 years.
Through Mr Mayor, we try to build relationships with people, especially when they're in circumstances when they can't pay their rates. So we have, lots of phone conversations, and people come in and have conversations around how we can help them manage that.
Yep.
So the properties that we're talking about now, I don't think there's any houses on any of them. They're lots where we can't find owners and things like that too, or they're deceased estates where there's no beneficiaries or anything like that. So I think from my understanding in my time here, I think there's probably only been one property with a house on it that was actually sold, and that was 20 years ago. So we work with everybody to make sure that we can get them on a payment plan. The 3 years is the minimum that we can, 3 years full rates outstanding is the minimum that we can actually sell up for. So even if you've probably made a few payments in that time, we won't be able to sell up anyway. So it's more for those properties where we can't, can't locate owners. Yeah.
On that is, if it's a deceased estate,
yeah,
and we sell it, do we only get who actually gets the money? Well, like I know we get our rate money back, but the money that's left over, does that go to state revenue or is it council revenue?
What happens with it is we have to hold it for a period of 2 years. Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor. We have to hold it for a period of 2 years and advertise that we've actually got it here. And then if there's any, what's it called?
Heirs?
Yeah, or basically people that put their hand up to say that they're claiming it, then we can go through that process with them. And then we wait after the 2 years. If no one's come forward, it goes into our revenue then. Yeah.
Thank you. Now we'll jump back.
Right. Where am I at?
9.2.
9.2. So related party transaction policy. This policy was first adopted in 2016 by the council, and it's up for review. There hasn't been any changes to the policy. Basically what it is that under the accounting standards, the AASB 124 related parties, in our financial statements each financial year, we are to record the transactions associated with what's called key management personnel of the organisation. So if you're in a position where you can influence the decisions of the council over their operations, then you're classed as key management personnel. So under that standard, all councillors are key management personnel because you adopt the budget, you make decisions, everything around this table. And also what we've done is we've looked at internally in terms of management what that who fits that category as well. So that's myself, the Director of Infrastructure and Development, the General Manager, the Manager of Engineering and Projects, just for the simple fact that there's a lot of expenditure in that role, and also the Depot Manager. So they're the ones in the organisation that have been classed as that. So each year we need to look and see whether there has been any close personal relationships with anybody that's providing services to the council. So that might be a relative, and it's in the policy it's written down what those relatives actually are, or it might be a close associate as well too. So it's not saying that we can't have those relationships in terms of it might be, we have had in the past before where councillors' family members have provided services to the council, whether that be excavators or trucks or, whatever that might be. Not saying that can't happen if they go through the normal tendering and procurement process. It just means that we need to record it and be open and transparent in the way that we do it. So you'll see some forms. There's an attachment of the form here too that you'll get that you'll fill out each financial year to say whether you've had any interactions with, or whether the council has had any interactions with any of your relatives or close associates. So that's just a really a probity thing. The Audit Office does actually look at all those, and they've asked for all those, and they audit them each financial year too. The reason why it's been getting a bit of airtime lately is that the audit panel have been asking about it as well too. So no change to the actual the policy, but good to put it up in and get it readopted, to make our records up to date. So I'll present that one, Mr Mayor.
Thank
for your consideration.
you. Any questions?
Yes, there is a question. I noticed my grandson is doing quite a bit of the maintenance work from the depot.
Right.
Where do I fit in that?
Yeah,
I see his bus out there. And,
through you, Mr Mayor, that's one that I would put down.
Right.
Because what we do is we work out of those interactions, say with your grandson, what the value of those is, and we just report that in the annual report.
Thank you.
So, if you're in doubt about anything, just
Is that
ask.
the form that's in the envelope, is it?
That's the form.
No, there's two forms that you'll fill out. One's to do with key management personnel, so that's if you've got any relatives or relations or whatever that provide services. The other one's to do with whether you have a financial interest in anything. So there's actually two forms that you'll do. Yeah, so you'll get the financial interest one.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Hine.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Dedmer?
This is different than that other proposal that was floating around about a year ago.
Yes.
Okay, in that one there was, I don't know if it was provision for or requirement of for all of those intimate details of your family's business dealings to be made publicly available. Is this do that?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. No, this doesn't do that. That was, quite right, that was a discussion that was going on about revising the Act to bring some of those new provisions into play. Haven't heard any more about that since. We sent in a response to that consultation around December, I think, January. So this is the standard form that you filled out since you started, and there's no change to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No further questions? Can we have a mover and a second this be adopted, please? Councillor Collins, Councillor Pilkington. Put the motion, those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Financial management strategy.
Thank you again, Mr Mayor. The financial management strategy was previously only adopted earlier in the year, but we've had a recommendation from the audit panel just for one minor change at this point in time. We are about to go through the process of starting a revised financial plan that you'll see on your workshop agenda in the next couple of months, and we'll do a fair chunk of work on that. So we'll have to review this strategy again probably before Christmas, but the strategy sets out our sort of revenue targets, our borrowings, our cash reserves. It's also got our financial indicators in it. The audit panel suggested a small change in terms of increasing the robustness of the investment section on the strategy. Basically wanted a notation in here, which is on page 337. No, I lie. I outright lied to you there. It is page 340. That in accordance with Council's adopted investment strategy or investment policy. So they just wanted to reference the financial strategy actually back to our policy. So that is the only change compared to the one that was adopted earlier in the year. So I'll present that one for your consideration too, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Pilkington?
With our depreciation accounts, it's never mentioned as a separate thing in any of the books. Why is that?
Potentially through you, Mr Mayor, because it's not a strategy.
Right.
The strategy works out what type of financial targets and things like that you actually want to meet from your financial statements, where depreciation is just a book figure and an expense, I suppose. Like we don't have materials and contracts, or we don't have employee costs or anything like that in there either. It's just a section on the financial statements, I suppose. If you wanted a strategy around reducing depreciation, then that might be a strategy that you might put in your financial management.
I might in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you had a strategy around that, that you had a target that you were looking for or something like that, then that's what we could put in there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Collins?
Just with the investment strategy, the council invests funds to maximise the return on investments whilst maintaining an acceptable level of risk.
Yep.
Who gets to say where that goes?
Through you, Mr Mayor.
What decisions are made?
Yeah, under the policy and the guideline with the investment policy, That's been set by the elected members. So that was probably done 18 months ago.
There's an adjustment about that,
Yeah.
just about the end of last term.
Yeah. So that policy gives us as staff members constraints about what we can do with that. So basically all we can do at the moment is put them in term deposits.
Right.
So that's the, I suppose, the, it's risk averse, but it's also protecting council's money as well too. So we as officers, I think there's Vanessa, myself and Duncan have a delegation to be able to invest those funds on behalf of council. So, yeah.
Within the policy framework.
Within the policy framework. Yep.
Right. I just didn't know if they were allowed to invest out of the circular head area to be able to try and maximise the money.
Oh, well, yes.
No, not under the policy. Like basically, all as it limits it to is the big five banks, based upon the Standard & Poor's ratings in there. That's why we hadn't been able to go to the Bendigo Bank at that point in time, because it was a B-rated bank, which was outside the A- rated policy that I think that we've got at the moment. So I've lost my train of thought. Yeah. So. No,
It's investing.
Investing outside.
Investing outside of it.
Yeah, no, big five. Yeah, no, we can't do anything like that. If the elected members, just say somebody come to the council and wanted us to invest in something private or a, what's it called, a charity or something like that, then you would have to do that as a separate motion outside of your policy. So, but yeah, we don't have any of that. It's basically, we deal with a couple of banks, and yeah, that's the limit of our investing activities. So, yeah.
Councillor Hine?
Wouldn't Bendigo Bank be one of those five?
No, they weren't, Councillor Hine. No, not at that point in time.
No, that was the last adjustment though, wasn't it, to allow a certain amount?
Yeah, it might have been.
The last adjustment done, which was just on the end of last term.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know I was still on the board, so I had to remove myself from the discussion. Yeah. But that was to allow some money to be invested in the Bendigo Bank.
Yeah.
Seeing it was a community bank here.
So our policy does allow that now.
Allows a certain amount.
Yeah, I think it was up to $2
million.
million.
Without remembering what it's a certain amount.
It was $2 million. Yeah.
Did you have another question?
Basically, it was along the same lines as like, is there any chance in the future, just out of sheer curiosity, that the council is able to invest some money into something out of this area so that we're not actually challenging anybody in this area and sort of got inside information? I know that other council in other areas have invested in different things, schemes and that sort of thing, dairies, all sorts of other things where they've actually invested money into it, let it sit there for a number of years and then received a higher return.
Yep. I think, through Mr Mayor, after our issues of the past, it's, even though the funds did come back and all the interest and fees and things like that did come back as well, so there was actually nothing lost out of it apart from a lot of heartache. Then the council have taken a conservative approach to investing, and because that went on for a number of years. But there's no reason in the future that if council want to look at other things, then there's no reason as a collective why you can't do that. So the Act lets you do that to a certain degree. So, yeah.
Yes, Councillor Hine?
Yeah.
Stand up this one.
I will. So, I understand the Dorset Council actually invested in irrigation water in the district in the past.
Yes, that they may well have done, and as Rachel explained, we can invest in things that are outside of that if we wish.
Right.
As long as the table, as a group agree.
Agrees to it, yeah.
But it's not really nothing to do with this strategy at the moment.
No, but it's overall opportunities.
As Rachel explained, that is possible, but it has to be dealt with. The strategy then and the policy allows for the staff, our management team, to make those investments on our behalf within those policy guidelines. Outside of that, we've got to make the decision.
Yeah, and I think through you, Mr Mayor, too, if you were going to be doing something like that outside the policy, then you need to review your policy.
Yep.
Yes.
Instead of making decisions outside of that, just as on a one-off.
Absolutely.
That's where my thinking was getting to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So at some stage, it's appropriate, we may look at that policy again.
Yes.
Yep. Well, it's appropriate we do it regularly anyway.
Well, it's like through Mr Mayor, the VDL was owned by, was it New Plymouth
It's it,
Council in New Zealand at one point in time.
For a number
so
of years,
it's
yep.
very
Pity it
different
wasn't
depending
still.
on.
Anyway, we're getting a bit off track. Can I have a move and a second of this be adopted, please? Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Seconded Councillor Collins. No further debate? Put the motion, those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Rachel. Go again.
Right, go again, Mr Mayor.
9.4.
Right, 9.4 rates and charges policy and guidelines. So, through the budget process this year, we had a look at our rates and charges, and the one change that we've brought forward under this policy is the one to remove the single line item for the waste levy, which we now have included with the White Hills Transfer Station levy, the urban collection and the rural collection. So that was just to remove that from the policy, and everything else actually remained the same. So I will present that, Mr Mayor, because that's about it.
Okay. Any questions on that one? If not, can I have a move and a second that that be adopted? Thanks, Councillor Hine. Seconded Councillor Flowers. No debate? Put the motion, those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 9.5, rates resolution.
Right, through you, Mr Mayor, this is probably, councillors, your most important document that you'll sign off for the financial year, which is actually the raising, the ability to raise your rates, and I think down below it works out to be about 59% of your funds for the year to operate in. The rates resolution identifies general rate, all our waste rates, stormwater rates, as well as the fire levy and the minimums that we are able to rate for those as well. Also outlines the discount for early payment, which is still at 3% for this financial year, and a 7% penalty on late payments as well too. We've gone with the same 3 instalment dates and a 3% discount if you pay before I think the date is actually the 30th of August this year on the Friday. On page 360, there's actually a big section there on what has increased and decreased over the year for next financial year because of changes to our revaluations. So we've had an adjustment factor come in from 1 July, which means that we've had, basically it's a review between revaluations, so we only have 6 yearly revaluation, so every 2 years there's a mini review in the middle. So that's why on top of page 360 is the general rate has, in terms of cent in the dollar, has actually decreased from 6.1 to 5.5 cents in the dollar. So if you're actually applying that to the same valuations as last year, we will get a lower return, but it's actually, sorry, the other way round. No, that's right. It would have been a lower return, but because the valuations have increased, it actually brings it up to the amount that we're actually required to raise. The general rate pool has been earmarked for a 6.5% increase across the board. So some rates, though, however, when they're actually distributed, we'll find that some have gone up proportionally more than the 6.5%, and then some have gone down less. Not as gone up as much as the 6.5%, as in they've only gone up 2%, and that's to do with the valuations of the properties. So we've had a big swing to primary production. A big swing to primary production.
25%, wasn't it?
Pardon?
25%.
I can't remember the figure, but it was basically 100 to 120% in valuations. And residential, commercial, industrial have only gone up 40% in comparison to that 120% for primary production. So that's where a lot of the rates have actually shifted to primary production. So you might, I think it was somewhere between 10 and 20% or 15 and 20% that rates for property production had gone up compared to around 2 or 3% for the residential. So, yeah. So I'll present that one for your consideration, Mr. Mayor.
I think you've got a question, Rachel, from Councillor Flowers.
No, it's a 6.5% average across the board.
It was actually, if we raise set amount last financial year, and we have valuations of a certain amount, you get a cent in the dollar. What we've done with that bucket is we've added 6.5% on that, and then we've the new valuation. So we don't actually raise any more. All as we've raised is 6.5% of last year's value.
Yeah, so it's a 6.5% across the board, you're more or less saying.
In income that we've raised.
Just that a lot of people out there, and our general manager's probably got a lovely bashing from me prior to me being sitting here at the table about advertising a set rate increase. And then farmers have got hit with 20%, like I said to Councillor Dabner the other night. When he was talking 6.5%, I said, no, the farmers are going to get...
They're going to get more than that, and some of them probably, I think the range on the workshop paper was somewhere between 15 and 20 in terms of primary production. But that's to do with sales evidence, market evidence of selling prices, which influence what the valuation of properties actually are. So the properties must be valued at that and be worth that for the valuer general to give them that amount of valuation. And then our rating system is based on a capacity to pay. So if your property's gone up more and farms aren't income generating, so then basically the theory is that you've got more capacity to pay than somebody that just owns a residential property.
Yeah, I just try to make it quite clear to the farmers out there that if they think they're going to get a 6.5% rise, they're dreaming it's going to be 20% rise.
Yep, that's it, and that's just to do with the valuations.
Because they're going to give it to me, and hopefully they give it to you like that there too, but I don't want to take all the flack.
I've already fielded a couple of phone calls along those lines and tried to explain precisely.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at. Like I just talked to Councillor Dabner the other night. He was explaining to me how farmers were getting a 6.5% raise, and I said, no, they're not. They're going to get way more than that. They can triple that.
So across the board, we're raising 6.5% more income. But that's distributed differently based on the valuations of the properties. So obviously the farms are selling for proportionally more than what residential is actually selling. So
in other words, so-called rich, what went around this table here at an agenda, at a workshop, subsidising the so-called poor, as in the rich landowners.
So that's what it is, a capacity to pay. It's not subsidising, it's actually, you've got more of a capacity, not you.
No, I'm just having a dig because I don't like it much when this table turns around and says the rich are getting subsidised.
No, that was to do with... Through you, Mr Mayor, that's to do with the discount.
I understand that's to do with the discount, but not all farmers with a lot of asset are rich.
No.
So don't call them rich when they're not rich. Thank you.
I think we should consider it's unfortunate the time it's happened because land sales 18 months ago are reflecting on a very depressed economy. And I understand the process, but we should be sympathetic, and if people are in trouble, we should follow your theory that we look after them in how they pay.
And definitely, and through you, Mr Mayor, there's, and we have for years, especially in terms of dairy farming and milk checks and things like that, that only come in at certain times during the year. We try and get everybody to pay within the 12 months. If they're on an arrangement, and that's to come in and have the conversation. I think that's the first thing, because if you just leave it, we don't know what you're doing. So that's what I would encourage everybody to do to start off with, and make contact somehow, whether that's an email or a phone call. Come in. We've got staff downstairs there that are willing and to do arrangements as best we can that suits whatever business model people are operating at the minute. So we start to carry it over into the next year. That's when it starts to build up and start to get some issues there. So we try to, whether it's evenly spread fortnightly payments or weekly payments or 3 lump sums that are different dates than what the instalments are or whatever, then quite happy to do any of that. Yeah.
Another thing that in the equation is to get our dollars in and our 6.5%. We've also got to be mindful that the unit of AAV has dropped from 6 cents to 5. So therefore, that's part of the equation too. So if someone says you're putting me rates up due to valuation, but we're also dropping down the unit of AAV.
Yeah. So that means that the valuations have gone up significantly more for that cent in the dollar to drop.
If they didn't bring that down, left at 6, we just
that's
get 10% increase.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Payment for a farmer, whether you're a cropper or a dairy farmer, in August is the poor time of the year, really, because their cash flow in August, like a cropper's putting his crops in, probably spending $1 million to put his crops in. A dairy farmer has wintered his cows all winter. He hasn't had a cheque. The first couple of checks are mere pittance because they're only just starting out and milking very well. And that is a bad time of the year.
Yep.
Like as for the beef farmers, probably a little bit different. The other two, the croppers and the milkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bad time of the year.
Through you, Mr Mayor, they're probably the ones that we do have the arrangements with most years. And I think there's been quite a few where they've just year after year have the same cycle that we get them onto. So I'm quite happy to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hine.
Yeah, on page 395, you've got the rate revenue actually increased by over 17%. How do you sell that back to the ratepayer?
395.
When it's only going to be, average. We're putting up average.
So are you on the same? Same report?
The wrong one. You're in the budget.
Probably.
I can answer that though. Now I'll wait till the next one.
Wait till we deal with that one.
Yep.
Okay. No further questions.
Yes. On page 376, where you've got
That's the next.
That's not the same
next one.
report.
Well, right. Well, I'll hold that as well.
He's a man of the future.
He's running ahead of time.
Good on you.
He stands up again.
Move the boot, not a bit. Yes.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Annual plan and budget estimates.
Right.
9.6.
Peace to resistance, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we have the annual plan and budget estimates for 2024-25. Just do a quick summary. The budget includes a projected deficit of 2.5 million and a closing cash balance of 10.8. The ratios are actually overall pretty positive, obviously apart from the underlying surplus ratio, which is caused by the deficit. We've got no borrowings to be incurred this year and actually no borrowings at all at the moment, and rates are expected to account for 59% of our ordinary income and grants 22%. We've workshopped the budget over a 6-month process, actually probably 8 months, because I think the first one we had was in October, November last year. So it's been a fairly long process. I think it's been a good one this year too, though, in terms of going through everything fairly well, getting some strategic direction on where they want to go with master plans and things like that. On page 373 of the report, there's the highlights at a glance. So that mentions the 6.5% general rate increase. We've got a few of the major projects there this year, which is the capping of the cells at Port Ladder for 4.4 million, roads reshooting, which we do each financial year, which takes up a fair chunk of our budget as well. The big urban road reconstruction this year is actually Davis Street, so that's on the Woolies Corner. So we've obviously got lots of changes in terms of the waste space as well. With Port Ladder and White Hills, I've got an upgrade to the White Hills transfer station of $700,000 there as well. Got $350,000 for the development of the Smithton CBD master plan. Resurfacing around the Smithton Recreation Ground, which there may be some funding kicking around for potentially.
Through you, Mr Mayor, both that one and the master plan
Yeah.
Have election commitment funding made. We now have to get that out of the state government.
Yeah. We've also got a new section of footpath on the Montague Road to the golf club. The settlement strategy, some new backboards at the Swirl Basketball Stadium too, which has been a while in the making, which is good. So they've been, from my understanding, design for that was happened last financial year. Design of a regional playground. Future community visioning project for 79, and also $30,000 for the development and environmental plan. Also, council has been working on the open space strategy in the current financial year, and that'll be completed in the first quarter of next financial year. And probably the last two on the list have been suggestions from the public as well too, which is a new footpath, an extension to the footpath, and fence around in Fossey Street, but near the dog park section there, and also a dog park shelter and some seating as well too. So overall, a fairly chunky, meaty budget with a lot of forward planning in it. There's $1 million worth of special one-off operating projects in there for the $1 million. So I'll present the budget for council's consideration, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd like to move an amendment with
we need to move a motion, second that, then you can come in with the amendment. If we'll go, is there any questions? I think we've built this around a fair bit over the time.
Yeah, there was a question back on 376.
One's gone flat.
Just where you've got that pie graph, really, is there a way of 376?
Well, it's not dead flat, but it's
Is there a way of splitting up the waste and the weeds? You've got 11% expenditure on the side there of splitting that up into two.
Oh, good. Sorry, Mr Mayor, can do if council wishes.
At some stage, yeah. I think it'd be handy to split that up and know what we're spending on weeds. And
Right. Do you want that to come back to council, or do you just want me to send that on email outside the session? Or
Yep, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not going to make it. It's not making any
No.
material difference to this.
Yep.
Righto. So we need to move in a second, and then obviously Councillor Flowers is going to put an amendment in, but we need to move in a second before we can do that. Councillor Pilkington, Councillor Dabner. Thank you. Now go.
I'd like to move an amendment that we remove the trucks and the trailers from selling them and don't buy 2 new trucks and trailers.
Right, is there a seconder to that?
yes, I'll second that.
Right, before you talk to Councillor Flowers, I asked Rachel, she sent an email around, which I presume we had to give a breakdown of the reasoning behind the numbers there.
Yeah,
please.
So I just said, in terms of the impact on the financial statements of removing the trucks and trailers from the budget, the difference in the depreciation amounts between the old trucks and the new trucks and the trade-in value means the deficit will increase by 100,000 to 2.6 million, and the cash balance will increase by 900,000. So there's a few accounting entries that you would have to do to change this. So we wouldn't purchase the trucks to start off with. So that's an expenditure that we wouldn't have to have. We wouldn't have the trade-in price of those trucks because if we're not buying new ones, then we can't sell the old ones. So that's 300,000. If we don't sell the old trucks, then they've still got about $150,000 worth of depreciation still left, so we don't have to write that off. And the depreciation extra on the new trucks compared to the old trucks was about $50,000. So all those entries there actually mean that we'd have a revised loss of 2.6 million, not 2.5 million, but our closing cash balance would go up by 900,000 as well too. So I just had to let you know that, because that's the impacts of if you didn't want to do the trucks and trailers this financial year.
Thanks, Rachel. Councillor Flowers?
How I said, the trucks have got 330,000 kilometres on them.
That's 7370, I think, around
370.
6370.
Yeah, well,
yep.
Minimal amount of kilometres for a truck. Probably majority of trucks running on the highway now pulling B doubles is 1 million kilometres. It's nearly justified. Well, we've got to look at whether it justifies even owning our trucks doing only, 35,000 k's a year or 40,000 k's a year, which is not many kilometres. I still reckon we should keep these trucks for another 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, too, if council does go down this path, then we can actually do some more work internally in terms of whole of life costing and things like that.
So
over the next 12 months.
Over the next 12 months, you can bring some in. Yep. Councillor Hine, you
Yeah, no, I fully support that. I think the kilometres recommended was 500,000, and they're going to got up to about 370. The model of trucks that we've got, they no longer make them as far as the trade is concerned. So the trade-in prices you got is probably exaggerated quite a bit from the information I've got. And as Councillor Flowers said, usually those trucks do 1 million kilometres, and we're still only sort of working on about 500,000. So I certainly fully support that.
Speakers for and against?
So to get a clarification, please, Mr Mayor, if we defer selling them and we decide in 6 months' time that, no, we might sell them, we do a budget adjustment. So if it goes through now that we are selling them, can we in 6 months' time do a budget adjustment to say we're not selling them?
Not under the amendment in front of us. The amendment in front of us at the moment is that we don't sell them if we don't buy the new ones. Is that correct, Councillor Flowers?
Don't buy the new ones, don't
buy the old
ones.
And as I understood Councillor Flowers' debate, you'd like to see it over a 12-month period to then get some information back about what effect that has. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Yeah. So its clarification is, if that amendment went through as it sits, is we would keep the trucks for 12 months, we'd get some information back over the use and that and the effects they have over that 12-month period and make the decision come next budget time.
Can I get a clarification through you, back to Rodney, because my preference is we look at this, take it over a 3-year term, because it'll only be up to about 500,000 kilometres in a 3-year term, and therefore, and as the advice I've got, the trading value is depleted considerably, and so they've still got a good life, so I don't know whether Rodney's...
Well, we'll come back. There's nothing in this that says we will sell this in 12 months' time.
Right, yep.
Well, in 12 months' time we can review it.
Yeah,
right.
If they put it up again in 12 months' time to sell the trucks...
Yeah, we're not specifically stating 12 months.
We're not saying 4 or whatever, but over the next 12 months we'll get information flowing back.
That's right, and then you'll be able to make a decision from there.
Right, so we're all clear of what that is?
Through you, Mr Mayor, sorry to interrupt you. Can I get the exact wording of this amendment so it's correct for the minutes?
I think, so we've got, sorry, what page is the resolution itself on?
That council remove. So
9.6 is 380, 362 the start of it.
Right, sorry, just go back a couple of pages.
Purchase.
So,
of 2 trucks.
So that council, that council by absolute majority adopts the annual plan and budget estimates for 24-25 provided as a separate document.
The council
with the
purchase of 2 trucks and 2
with the amendment to remove the sale of 2 trucks and trailers.
Still have the sale in
trailers.
The purchase,
as well as any sale proceeds.
Yeah. And associated sale process then. Process.
Proceeds.
Processing.
So process.
Proceeds.
No, process.
We don't want to sell them, so.
Because we don't want to
process.
sell them.
Oh, okay. Same thing, but.
Yeah.
Bit different.
Right, so, Rodney, that's your,
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
yep. Tony, you happy with that, a second?
I'm happy with that, but for foreshadow, once we agree on this, I'd like to move a second amendment that's not associated with this.
That's all right, we do that, do this.
Can we amend after we adopt that?
No, you can't amend
We'll have to
after you
take that
adopt.
amendment
So,
further now.
if this amendment is agreed, it becomes the motion before council.
Then we move.
Then we get amendment.
Then
Yep,
you can
okay.
move in another
Yep,
amendment.
thank you.
Where's my learned friend up in Queensland?
That makes, right, so I'll put the motion as it says.
He's probably watching.
Yeah, watching.
I'll put the amendment as it sits there now, so that the motion would become, that was that?
Yep.
All those in favour?
All right.
Against? The amendment's carried,
So that
which is now comes the motion, which if you've got an amendment, you can stand up to.
Thank you. The amendment is that we've got an item expenditure there of 90,000 to complete and implement the municipal settlement strategy. I'd like to move an amendment that we retain that the amount of 90,000, but we keep the strategy going as it is, but it complement that we use that 90,000 to start the process on getting a population strategy and probably pick up the 2019 one and move on from there, so that the two go hand in hand.
Righto, we need a second before you can.
Yeah, righto, good, yep.
Is there a seconder to that?
Yeah,
Yep. Right, before you speak to it though, I'll go to Ali and ask for the potential that may or may not have an effect on a rezoning, e.g.
Well, through you, Mr Mayor, can we get the wording first?
Yes.
And then ask for input. Sorry, so.
Right.
Could you say, if I can get that wording, so that council removes the sum. Reallocates
the 90,000.
that is against the settlement strategy.
Yes, and commence the process with those dollars, but whatever the staff can do as far as keeping the settlement strategy moving, to start the process of a
Yes.
population strategy as well, and pick up the 2019 one.
Just a moment. So that council reallocates the $90,000 allocated to the settlement strategy and uses that
To include the population strategy.
and uses that funding to recommence work on a population strategy.
Right. I'll come to you, Councillor, I wanted to talk to your motion.
Just a second, to recommence work on a population strategy. Right.
What I'd like is, please, Ali, if I put you on the spot, the possible implications of if someone comes in from, and let's use Rocky Cape because there's something happening out there, on a rezoning application if we haven't done those locality plans.
So at the moment, if we were to take the population strategy as it is and not go...
Settlement
strategy, sorry. Take the settlement strategy as it is and not do the locality plans, which the $90,000 has been set aside for, a rezoning application such as Rocky Cape is not going to get the support it needs when it gets to the Tasmanian Planning Commission for them to hear the application, for them to approve. So we need the locality plans to give detail to an application such as Rocky Cape for the Planning Commission to support, because at the minute, the view of the Planning Commission and the Regional Land Use Strategy and all of those things is that the type of rezoning Rocky Cape would like is not to be supported. So we need to do more homework to demonstrate to them why we think this is a good idea, why it's good for Circular Head, and the benefits that that could give our community. So even though it might not be fully aligned with their strategies, this is what we believe and why. So if, for Rocky Cape in particular, if we don't do those locality plans, their application, while we might think it's a great idea, it's not going to get support when it gets to the state people who make those decisions, and they have the final decision. It's not going to get the support it needs at that level. So if you take the locality plans away and we don't do those, we'll still have a settlement strategy, and in essence at the moment the settlement strategy doesn't give enough support to development outside of Smithton and Stanley. Does that make sense to everybody?
Thank you. Now, Councillor Hines, speak to the amendment.
So you're now talking about a locality plan as well, then, is rather than a settlement strategy, is that?
On the presentation last week, there was the provision, the next step was to go on to the locality plans.
And that's what the 90,000 is set aside for, to do a locality planning now, in addition to the settlement strategy, is that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I may, you remember when we did the consultation on the settlement strategy and there was a lot of concern from the community that it didn't reflect the rural areas?
Yeah, I agree with that, yes. Yep.
So the 90,000 is the budget to do that consultation in the rural areas to develop those subsidiary documents, the locality plans that will be underneath the settlement strategy.
Thank you. Well, the last thing we want to do is stop, stop that, that's for sure. So is it with the agreement of the seconder, we withdraw that and probably foreshadow a motion that we, at another meeting, test the council to see whether we want to start the process of a population strategy.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think that's absolutely a way to go. I would just say that for the 24-25 year, we've got a pretty full plate with plans and strategies, but we could certainly earmark that for the next year, the 25-26.
Right. So then I'm prepared to withdraw that part, but then I'd like to move then an amendment that we have a serious look at whether we need to spend 350,000 on the CBD, and whether we can halve that and save some dollars as far as the process there is concerned.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as I mentioned earlier, we have an election commitment to fund that work. So the funding that's in there is hopefully we won't need, because we'll get some money from the state government as an election promise was made to fund that work.
Righto, all right. So that's if that's what comes off, I'm happy enough with that.
And
there's two things, like with what you were talking about with the plans to go where, it should be based on a quality of, like, you got your different land grades, like prime agriculture, agricultural, and it goes down to marginal and whatever. I don't know what they're all called, but why haven't we, instead of doing these maps and saying you're allowed to do that there, but you're not allowed to do it over there. If that ground over there is marginal and a rabbit needs to cut lunch to get across it, you should be able to subdivide it.
No argument.
But that's what I mean. When we're putting things on bits of paper and saying, radio, you're allowed to subdivide that, but you're not allowed to subdivide that.
But we're not putting those lines on them bits of paper.
Well,
Planning Commission has, we've got to put applications to change those lines.
Well, we are though. By what you just explained there, that's how I took it. We're going to say, well, radio, you're allowed to subdivide in that area.
No. What?
I think we're on
You
the
want to
budget, Mr Mayor. I think we're on the budget.
Yeah.
No, but this is part of that discussion, so let's finish it. Kelly, do you want to respond?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So we are not saying by doing the locality plans that this is going to be a new zone here, or that this is going to be, that this area, like you say, a point on a map, is going to be rezoned into a certain thing. What we're looking at is what the ability of that area is to possibly be rezoned to something else in the future. So we'll look at not only land capability, we'll look at environmental factors, we'll look at climate change impacts, we'll look at a whole range of things that affect that particular area and its ability to add value to Circular Head. So we're not going to be drawing lines on a map with these locality plans as such. We'll highlight areas of Rocky Cape, it's the clear example. But we will look at all the things in Rocky Cape, that the current infrastructure that is there and that's available, its ability even to possibly look at things like septic tank viability and all that sort of stuff, land capability, and then road infrastructure and what the general desire of the population who already lives there is. All those sorts of things will get looked at in the locality plan, and then that information will be what the Rocky Cape application would refer to support its application for a rezoning later on. So we're not doing work for them, we're doing the strategic work behind it to support their application, but they're still going to have to do a whole range of stuff in order for their application to progress. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They'll be well off the budget,
Yep.
so.
But
The 300 or 350,000 you were saying that you said we're going to promise from the politicians.
Yep.
I don't have much faith in our politicians. Now, if we don't get that money, are we still going to spend it?
Well, the project's going to start on the 1st of July, so this is the project to revitalise the CBD that you all tell me you want to do, so...
Well, we all said we want to build some playground equipment too, but I know
Yeah,
I'd rather do first. But
Well, it all kinds of comes together. So the open space strategy that will be hopefully ready for adoption in September will then lead to the design of that playground. And we also had an election commitment promise to fund the design of a pump track as well. So there are a number of things that we will be pressing the government for.
yeah, like I said, I haven't got much faith in the
I know.
political source. Not only too many of us sitting around the table who have, but
they've got to get some money.
It's in the budget. It's in the budget to do. If the election promises come through, then we use that money, and then we can.
Well, that will reduce the deficit.
Reduce the deficit,
Yeah.
and/or come up with something else.
yeah, I'm sort of going on from Councillor Hine.
Well, I suppose that would be the time, if Councillor Hine is for shadowed a motion, that if that money comes through from that would be the time to see what happens there. As in the government money comes through, that's when you look at doing something with that from there. Hey, hang on, Councillor Bosky first.
Can I just, I'm a bit confused of what next step is in their strategy. Is we got feedback back from the community and we decided to look again at the settlement strategy. What's the next vote going forward? The way I read the table, the settlement strategy could be canned. Totally, if we have another vote on it. I don't know whether that's the case or not, but that's why I'm asking, what's the next step to keep it going forward?
They do the locality plans are done, get the result of them, and they come back to the table.
So the feedback we've got from the public, and we've asked for more feedback now, I believe.
Well, that's what they'll go out and get.
Yeah. Are we voting still to move the strategy forward, the settlement strategy forward?
We're voting for the budget with that money to go and do that work in the budget.
I don't understand. I understand what you're here now, that we've got money to do this. And I'm just really asking is, this table could well kill the settlement strategy.
And you'll kill developments with it.
We may be. It's a decision each of us will make.
But we're on another debate at the moment. We're on a debate about the settlement strategy rather than whether we complete our annual plan. There's 90 grand in that annual plan to go and complete the locality program. located project,
Annual budget.
annual budget, yeah, sorry. There's 90 grand in that to go on to do that. That's what we've got to decide upon now, is that annual budget. Councillor Pilkington, then Councillor Hine.
I'm in favour of the settlement strategy. I think we need to plan it. I'm in favour of the 350,000 for the redevelopment too. We need to spend it sensibly. The population strategy, I think, should be an overriding thing on both these. They're important to population growth to have areas like Rocky Cape and Marrowa and the Smithton CBD all growing, well planned, and the beautification and livability of the central CBD is important too to build our population. So I think the population growth should be overriding all our policies, because that's what we want, but we've got to do it properly so that we've got a well-planned municipality that people want to come to.
Councillor Hine?
Yes, on the time frame then for this, and we should rename this locality plan, not the strategy.
That's all part of the one document.
What's the time frame? Because it sounds like you've got an application there to with the Rocky Cape one. Is that going to be held up till we get sort of locality plan done as well, or?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So the Rocky Cape application hasn't been submitted yet.
Right.
And if we haven't got the settlement strategy information done, if we haven't got that strategy done, and we haven't got the locality plan done, then proceeding with that application could be quite expensive for not a great outcome. So if they want to submit that application, they want to push it, they're taking the risk that because we haven't done the strategic work we as a municipality need to do to support them, they want to do that first, and they want to put that up, then they're taking that risk. If they choose to wait until we've done our locality plans and the locality plan for Rocky Cape, then their application is going to be better supported from a strategic point of view.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we will have a meeting with the proponents to discuss that.
The dates for those locality consultation was at the end of the presentation last week.
First weekend in July, so the workshops aren't
The time frame then, you know, we might have a sort of something fairly concrete by September, you might say, as far as locality.
To be honest, I'm not sure the exact delivery date of when it
Good.
needs to be done by.
The consultations were early July.
Yes.
And it'll be really plucking time out of the air to give you a date at this point in time.
So the offshoot of that is the Rocky Cape one's got to wait till that's done.
They're having a meeting, Rocky Cape people make that decision.
Consultation.
Yep. If it was me, I'd be waiting and I'd be encouraging this to get done and be waiting for this, if it was me. It's not me.
Budget.
Any further? Any further?
I think, Mr Mayor, through you, I think that's the longest budget deliberations we've had.
Unbelievable.
It is me, and I've only been here 6 years.
At least everybody's clear,
Yes.
that's good.
So the second amendment, that amendment has been withdrawn, Councillor Hine?
Yes.
So...
You happy with that, Councillor?
Yeah, no.
So we're back to where Councillor Flowers was with the trucks at that point? So that is now the motion, so with the trucks out? All clear where we're at?
Yes.
No further debate?
If this amendment gets up, what does it do to that councillor relocates 90, or is that already been...
No, that's gone, that's out.
It's all resolved.
That's
Yeah,
out.
fast.
That's out.
No,
No,
it's been withdrawn, actually.
That's been withdrawn.
It's been withdrawn, actually. So that is
Two
the
different
motion.
items, totally different.
Yeah.
There was 2 items within the annual plan.
Within the plan, yeah.
So that'd be dealt with in 2 separate amendments. Right, so Councillor Flowers, seconded by Councillor Hine, is that the annual budget and plan here, less the trucks and trailers, is what we're voting upon.
Yep.
All clear?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. BAG, Rachel.
What happened?
You had your weekend off. Right, let's move on. 9.7, Review Community Grants Program. David, you've been here for a long way.
You've waited a long time.
Still awake.
Don't say that.
No, the discussion was entertaining.
To say the least.
Councillors, so this report's about the review of the community grants program. We'd like to make some changes to our current policy and guidelines. The recommendation, we have two. The first one is to endorse the inclusion of the National Team Selection Grant Guidelines into our community grants policy and guidelines. And the second one is to endorse the removal of section 3.5, which is the assessment will be undertaken by a working group which includes councillors and council officers from our current policy. Previously, councillors, when we've had requests from individuals that have been selected into national teams for their chosen fields, the decisions have been made on a case-by-case basis. So having the guidelines will provide clear direction and formalise council's position on how we contribute towards the cost of a national representative, and whether that's in academic area, arts, youth or sporting endeavours for individuals that reside in Circular Head. And there's also a limit on that as well. And the second part, in regards to the removing of section 3.5 from the policy, that was about, it was about a working group used to be set up, but because due to the fact that we don't have that many submissions coming through our grant program, this now, if we remove that, it gives all the councillors the opportunity to review all the applications and also make a decision together, I think, and we all make that together. And then council staff will then present our report to you to approve as usual. So that's the report, councillors. I'll present that to you, and if you have any questions, I'll happily help.
Send them to me.
Pardon?
Send them to me.
Rachel answering there. Is there any questions today?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I've got a question.
Yes,
I'm not quite sure what you mean by team selection. You could become an individual selected nationally. You could become, and especially if we may get an astronaut or something who's not part of a team, but maybe wants support. So team is restricting. Yeah, I just put national selection. I just think teams is not allowing enough credence to the academic side of it.
Oh, I see what you mean. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you look at the background of piece of the report, it does say individuals.
Yes.
Sorry?
If you refer to the part of the report that is in the background section, it says individuals.
Yep, it's just I noticed in the motion they had team. That's all.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry.
Related to
It's got
Yeah, sorry.
Change
Sorry, sorry.
Teams and individuals.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, councillor. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I just didn't want to restrict it if you weren't part of a
sorry.
team. That's all I was
I
asking.
understand.
Make an amendment.
So, Deb, is it, we're going well with them tonight, but an amendment to remove team would work for you?
Are you happy with that, councillor?
I think yes, thank you.
So, we've got to go through the...
No, I think you haven't asked anybody to move it yet, so...
we just removed the word team?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, so...
National selection?
National Selection Grants Guideline.
Yep.
That's what, just Jason Ash?
Yep.
Yep. I mean, sorry, Councillor Popovsky, so we still haven't meeting up.
Get him to move that with the removal of the word.
Do you wish to move that, Councillor Popovsky?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Flowers, thank you. Any discussion? Put the motion, those in favour?
Aye.
Thanks, Deb. Against, carried. 9.8, gifts for councillors.
Oh, yes, sorry, Mr Mayor.
Why do that quickly?
I was expecting Rachel.
Yeah,
to
Rachel.
Councillors, we discussed this at a workshop. The previous policy was quite old, and you agreed that you would like to modernise it and to remove the gratuities element of the policy, and therefore a new drafted policy is presented, which just refers to gifts at the end of the term, with the provision that we can, if we like, you grandfather for the 2 longest serving councillors who may or may not choose to accept that gratuity. Present that report.
Thank you. We did workshop this. Any questions further to that?
Is this a similar policy to staff? Is there, or is it a different possibility? If someone retires after 25 years as a staff, do they get this? Is this apply to them, or you still give them?
This is just for councillors. There's different provisions for staff.
Provisions for staff.
Good. Okay. Have we done more questions? Mover, seconder. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Seconder, Councillor Hine. No further debate? Put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
No. Against? Carried. Senior Management Report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Deb, was there anything out there about the volunteers? Or?
Through you, Mr Mayor, probably just we had a nice event to recognise National Volunteers Week at Redcar during Volunteers Week. I think there was about 30 people attended, didn't it, Mr Mayor? It was interesting though, we had representatives from probably the schools, parents and friends, the fire, also the football club and the Western Area Management Committee, and it was surprising how many people were in all of those committees.
Certainly more than one photo, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, just to highlight too, the youth, both our youth groups attended the Tasmanian Youth Forum recently in May, which they enjoyed. Plus, you might note in their minutes too that Anita Dow MP attended their last meeting, so were you there? So I think the young people asked a lot of questions, and I note that it was also raised about ambulance access and things like that. So
They've actually penned a really great letter.
Yeah, so they also support the importance of the lack of. Yeah, so thank you.
Any questions?
Can I ask what triggered the removal from down Nelson Street to the Guide Hall?
Oh, the 7-Up? The 7-Up, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, 7-Up.
Can I'll probably speak to that later in the meeting, if that's okay, Councillor?
Yep, thank you.
No further questions? And I have a move and a second that that report be accepted. Thanks, Councillor Dabner. Second, Councillor Pilkington. Put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 9.10 or 9.10.1, there's one lot of minutes, or 2 lots of minutes, but one from the World Health and Wellbeing Collective. Any questions or comments on those? If not, can I have a move and a second that they be noted, please? Thanks, Councillor Dabner. Second, Councillor Hine. No debate, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now I need a mover and seconder that the matters listed be for consideration in closed meeting. Move Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Dabner. Put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And I'll need a motion to close the...
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor Hine. Seconded Councillor Dabner. Put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Carried.